Welcome to Life Planning 101, brought to you by Kennedy Financial Services of Eastland. Tune in every Monday morning at 8:30 on KATX and again on Saturday morning at 9 a.m. on KATX and KWBY as Angela Robinson joins Stace Gaddy to share important financial information to help you live life on purpose. Insurance, investments, estate and tax planning, and much more. All covered now on Life Planning 101.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the program Life Planning 101. I'm Stace Gaddy, our special guest and expert from Kennedy Financial Services here in Eastland, Angela Robinson. Good morning. We're not even going to talk about the Cowboys.
No, that's just too depressing. Good morning, Stace, and I'm excited. We have a wonderful show today. For the next 2 weeks, we're going to talk a lot about family, which is kind of appropriate coming up on the holidays. So I'm really excited to be able to do that. And today, in particular, we're going to be talking about estate planning for blended families. And I'm going to talk about what that means. But before I do, I want to remind everybody we're going to have some trivia in the show. So make sure you pay particular attention to numbers today that I may raise, because we're going to be giving away one of those boxes of warm, gooey donuts again, back by popular demand. And of course, we are encouraging questions. So if you have a question, make sure you submit it. I promise you, there is nothing too dumb. I promise you this. And our email address is lifeplanning@kennedy-financial.com. We're going to be giving away 3 pairs of pants, compliments of Comet Cleaners here in Eastland, Texas. And they're going to be doing those dry cleaned or starch, however you like them, for free. So for the best question of the week. So make sure you submit yours, because we want to know them. And I promise you, here's the deal is Stace, you mentioned this last week when Aaron was on the show. It's great to have your questions, because if you have one, I guarantee someone else has that same question.
Right.
And if we can come back and address it on next week's show, I think it would be much appreciated to all of our listeners.
And as the old saying goes, the only dumb question is the one that isn't asked.
That's exactly right. So before we get started today, I'm gonna go ahead and date the show. Stace may kill me, but I think it comes at good importance. Everybody knows, and our Stephenville listeners, our Saturday listeners, that we actually air this live on Monday mornings, and we're coming in off of a weekend that our world has been hurt. Paris got attacked last Friday night, and they've actually fought back, started fighting ISIS, and I fear that our world may be coming to a point that we may have to make war decisions, and I think that deserves a prayer from everybody here on the listeners. Whether you believe in God or not, I ask you to believe in God this morning and pray to Him for our country, for our world, for France, for all those people that lost members of their family. And I want you to remember what happened to us on 9/11 and how we felt, because that's exactly what they're going through over there. And for the leaders of our country, they really need our prayers today. So ask you to do that. And like I said, I know, Stace, you may kill me for dating the show.
No,
but
not for that information. Absolutely not. That's absolutely correct. Yes.
Yes, but there's a lot going on in the world this weekend, and it could change things for all of us. And our whole world needs prayers. And pray for ISIS. I know that's hard to do sometimes, but we need to pray for them.
That's what they need.
Yep, their hearts be changed. So
let me interrupt you real fast. In a nutshell, I know it's a big topic, but with this kind of turmoil in the Mideast, what does it do to our markets?
That's a great question. It was funny. I was hearing some commentators on TV this morning. They said it was almost like the markets knew it Friday. They knew what was about to happen.
Yeah.
Which was very interesting, because the markets were closed when all of that happened in Paris. But today the futures look down. So and I would expect some volatility out of this. I mean, you just have to remember that any time there's rimraff out there and something going on in our world, the markets are going to feel a shudder, because people are going to get fearful. Now, the sell-offs that may occur, they're not occurring because companies have all of a sudden not been able to be profitable. We have to remember what the market's all about. But they would be selling off because people are getting fearful. And if we remember what Warren Buffett always tells us, greatest investor of all time, he says, buy fear, sell greed. So it's not a time to be fearful and sell off right now. I do think it's important that you're making sure that you're positioned so you're sleeping at night. So the size of your roller coaster that you're on in the market, you can handle emotionally. Mm-hmm. But it's not a time to be jumping out of the roller coaster whatsoever. You're going to get hurt if you do it.
Well, thank you for that. I know it was a little bit of a digression, but an important one. But our topic today, estate planning for blended families.
Yes, estate planning for blended families. And And, it's funny. We have this whole estate planning concept in our mind. And maybe you've even been to like a seminar on estate planning where it says like the 6 things that could be missing in your estate. And then afterwards you end up meeting with this firm or the people that gave the presentation, and you meet one time and you set everything in place, and you even get this beautiful leather bound binder with all of your stuff in it. And it looks great. And the question is that really fit your situation? What's unique to you? And most of the time it doesn't. And here's why. Traditional families, and when I talk about traditional families, I mean original mom, original dad, original kids. There's no stepkids, there's no stepsisters, there's no nothing, okay? Those don't happen very often anymore. In fact, over 50% of U.S. families are either remarried or recoupled today. That's a huge number. So what we're going to be talking about is we're going to be talking about the faults with the traditional estate plan combined with the blended family, because they just don't mesh well together. And then I'm actually going to tell you some stories of things that we've experienced, and I'm going to give you some things to really go back and actually take a look at your estate plan and figure out if it really needs to be revisited or not.
Very good. More with Angela Robinson, estate planning for blended families, right after these messages. Welcome back in, folks, and as always, a special thanks to all of our sponsors for making this programming possible, and to you, our listeners. Good morning again, Angela Robinson.
Good morning again, and a great topic today. Estate planning for blended families is what we are talking about, and we just gave the definition of what a blended family is, and found this interesting when I was doing some research. I actually originally wrote the content for today's show. I think it was back in 2010, so this has been almost 5 years I wrote this content, and of course, all these stats and stuff came from the U.S. Bureau of Census, and at that time, a little less than half of families were considered blended, and now there's more blended families than there are traditional families. Okay, and it's not just because of divorce. Okay, I think that's a common misconception. Yes, a divorce rate is higher in our country. It has come down though. So how would that possibly happen? Most of it is because people are living longer. You have women that, especially in particularly women, that end up in a remarriage when they're in their 60s or 70s. And this happens often. So, at that time, there's really a lot more to consider because there's usually a lot more wealth involved on one side, if not both sides. And the truth be told is there's 1,300 new blended families every single day in our country.
Wow.
1,300. That's a big number.
That's a huge number.
That's a huge number. So we don't, we take it for granted. We think, nothing needs to worry about it. Well, I'm going to share a couple stories with you, things that we've experienced, because I think, this is a great place for you to realize that if you have a blended family, how important your estate planning is to not just be traditional estate planning. In other words, make sure that all your assets go to your husband or your wife and then down to your kids. First of which, there was a lady that we had. She was 68 years old, and she remarried after dad had passed away. Subsequently, and it wasn't long after that, I think a couple years, she was actually diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And it was an onset, like snap of a finger, and she passed away very quickly. The sad news to this was that when the kids wanted to come and get things like their mom and dad's wedding rings out of the house and family photos and things like that, the new husband locked them out. Wouldn't even let them in the house. So we think things don't happen, but they do. It's really sad. Or, if we look on the opposite, and I know this to be true, we've all got people around us that we see. We had a gentleman that he was in his 60s, and he married a lady, early 60s, and he was married a lady that was 35 years old. Okay, quite a big difference in age. Well, you can imagine how the kids felt about this situation. But here's the deal. His dad, sound of mind, nothing wrong with him whatsoever, was absolutely in love with this lady. They were married for the next 20 years. She took care of him every day. He never went into a nursing home. She was there by his bedside every day, and he wanted to make sure that she was taken care of. He wanted all of his money to eventually go to his children, but he wanted to make sure that she was taken care of. So had he put his children in control of his money, guess what would have happened?
Sure.
She would have been knocked out of the picture. Okay. So it happens in reverse sides. It's not just protecting the kids, or it's not just protecting a spouse. It's actually both. We also had another business owner that he didn't have a prenuptial, and his second wife ended up being a business partner with his 2 children that have been in the business for 20 years. Wow. Talk about a conflict. That was a real difficult one. Another one, we had had a lady that she remarried after widowhood of a couple years, and they were in love, so to speak, and they went and got their traditional estate plan done with an attorney. Well, afterwards, she developed Alzheimer's, and he had durable power of attorney. So guess what he did? He ended up removing all the assets from her estate and divorced her.
Wow.
Wow. Yes.
You can't write that. If you
Nope.
wrote that if it was a script, nobody would believe it.
No, you can't. But these, and we always talk about, we've literally been doing life planning for about 26 years now. And the things that we're able to help our clients with most are really the things that we've learned through these experiences, through the things that have actually happened to different individuals and families that we worked with. And I think that's really important to know that, if you are in a blended family, you really have to consider what you need for your estate plan. Okay. Can you protect it? How can you protect it? What can you do? And we're going to actually talk about that in the last segment of the show. Is what are those things that you need to look for? What are those in particular things? There's actually 4 of them that can help you with all this. And I'm going to talk about the upsides and the pit sides of both of them, or all of them, because unfortunately there is no estate planning tool that can fix everything, because you can't possibly dream up everything that could happen.
Right.
Okay. And we go through what we call a devil's advocate conversation with our clients for just that reason. We try to go through everything that could possibly happen. And let me tell you, it's a very uncomfortable situation.
Yeah.
I mean, you just imagine if you're sitting across the table with me with your spouse that y'all have been married for 20 years, and I say, okay, now Stace, you're dead.
Yeah.
You can't talk anymore. Okay.
And she remarries.
Yeah. Are you going to get remarried?
A 25-year-old.
That's right. Yeah.
Man.
And let's pretend that now she's gone. Now, I'm just talking to her because you're already gone. Would you still want your new husband to be able to live in your house?
It's real life.
Yep.
I mean, you have to deal with it. And when I mentioned you earlier and was telling folks to be sure and tune in, that's exactly what I said. I said these guys deal with real-life situations.
That's right. It's not textbook.
No.
You can't learn that in a textbook.
And sometimes it's very uncomfortable.
It is
but you have
uncomfortable.
to.
It is uncomfortable. And I'll tell my own grandmother's situation. My grandmother was in a 3rd marriage, and she ended up in a home this year, a care home. She's got something called aphasia, and she's gone downhill as far as physically too. But her husband, they were married for over 10 years. Her 3rd husband, and she wanted to make sure that he was taken care of, that he could stay in the house as long as he can, because he didn't have a penny to his name. But she wanted to make sure that her kids ended up with all of her assets after the fact. Now, when she originally planned, do you think she possibly, when she was married to my grandfather, did you think she possibly thought that she could be married to another man and care for him the way that she did my grandfather?
Can't see the future.
You can't. So, having those questions is what's really important. So when we come back, we're going to talk about those things to look for inside your estate plan. You don't want to miss it. And of course, we've got our trivia, so you don't want to miss that as well.
Stay right here, folks. Welcome in, folks, to the final segment of Life Planning 101. Glad to have you with us. We're talking about estate planning for blended families. And Angela Robinson, of course, our special guest and expert. Good morning a 3rd time.
Yes, and you brought up something very interesting in the break there. We were talking about how uncomfortable that situation is, but it brought to mind another point to reckon with is, when you're planning for your estate, if you think about you want your assets to go down to your kids, right? And if something were to happen to your kids, then where would you want it to go?
Right.
Your grandkids, correct? So in most cases, people want it to go down the bloodline. That's what we call it. But let's imagine this. Let's imagine that something happened to your child, heaven forbid, and you may love your son-in-law or daughter-in-law endlessly and make sure, you said, oh, that's fine if they get the money and then it's there for the grandkids. But if they're young, do you think there's a chance that son-in-law or daughter-in-law will remarry?
More than likely.
More than likely, there's a very high chance they'll remarry.
So then you have that entire other family
that you didn't even know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and let's imagine that something happened to son-in-law or daughter-in-law before it did new spouse. Do you think that they could unintentionally disinherit your grandkids?
There you go, folks.
Yeah.
Just some of the infinite scenarios.
That's right. That's right. So, it's really important. This estate planning for blended families is really important. We go to an attorney and they set up what we call a reciprocal will. Make sure it goes to husband and wife and then down to the kids. Okay, that's a traditional family estate plan. And it simply just doesn't work when you have a 2nd marriage or a 3rd marriage. It doesn't work at all. So you've got to put some thought into it. And here's some of the thought that I want to give you today. First of all, I want to talk about something called a prenuptial. Okay.
Yes.
We all know what that is, right? And we all say, well, if I were to get remarried, I'll just get one of these. Well, let me say this. In the state of Texas, where our faith is so deep, and in the face of God, when we say our vows, we believe that that comes before anything. And most people do not get a prenuptial in the state of Texas.
Really?
You know, they don't. They won't. They will never do that, because they're pretty sure they've gone to all this counseling before they got married, and they really believe that they're in this for the love, that the money doesn't matter. And that's true. I would agree with that when it comes to setting vows and, making sure that, love is there, it shouldn't be about the money. So I'm really not in favor of prenuptials. I'm not. I don't like them because I don't like having to, I should put it this way. I don't like having to rely on one because no one's ever going to do it. The estate should already be taken care of while mom and dad are in that first marriage or in that second marriage now, when they can still take care of things and they're listening to this show. You don't need to do it when you get remarried. You are in love. You're little lovebirds, and you're not going to want to sign a piece of paper. I promise you. You're not. It's just not going to happen. So how do you do that? How would you actually do that? Okay.
Let me ask you before we get to that. Are they becoming less stigmatized, however? Prenups.
The prenups?
Seems to me that they are, but maybe not in Texas.
I think so, but with the generation that we typically work with. You're talking about people over 50.
Still the same traditional values. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's just, it doesn't happen, which is really sad. It really is, because I have faith. Trust me, I have faith. But the thing that I truly believe in is what mom and dad built as a legacy, and where they wanted to see that legacy go is very important.
Yes.
And that's my job, is to be able to help protect that. Mm-hmm. So I think that's really important. So, setting it up while mom and dad are still here is the most viable thing you can do. And I will tell you this, if this isn't on the top of your to-do list to get done, it needs to be. It needs to be, because the chances that your family will become a blended family in the future is very, very high.
One and two, according to your stats.
Yeah, 1 and 2, or if not more. Trust planning. That's what I want to talk about, because trusts actually give you the option to protect it. Here's the thing. Just because you have a trust doesn't mean it's protected, all right? And I'll give you an example of this. I was on the phone with an attorney in Denver last week, and I came off that phone, I was red as that Dr. Pepper can over there. I was so upset because this attorney talked about how he didn't like this type of trust and didn't like this type of trust. And he said, and at the end of the conversation, we got finished, I said, so what are you trying to accomplish? And when I told him, he says, oh, well, we probably do need to do that type of trust then. It's like, really? So, because...
How much of my life did you just waste?
That's right. Well, you got to think, most attorneys think in terms of just protecting the assets for the two people that are creating it. They're not thinking about down the line, what could actually happen. And, if you're really wanting to protect things, what I would strongly recommend is that you do some homework. You walk through those devil's advocate conversations and try to figure out exactly what you're protecting. And then a trust is designed around that to protect things, because there are big advantages to trust, but there are also big disadvantages to trust. You need to know the ins and outs, the pros and cons of it, exactly what you're getting into, and you need to have someone there with you to walk to the attorney and say, this is what we want. Oftentimes we work with people. We map out everything they want on a piece of paper. They can see it. They like it, great. If they don't, we change it. It's no legal lingo. Mm-hmm. That goes to the attorney. The attorney writes it up exactly what it's supposed to be depicting. They send it back to us. We review it. If it doesn't depict that, we communicate with that attorney to make sure that happens. Because what we found is when people get a document written and they get it back and it's supposed to say one thing, if it's in legal lingo, they don't understand it.
Right.
So they don't even know if it's correct or not. So I think that's really important. And that is not to down attorneys. We need them. We like them.
Sure.
We want them. It's just the way that they work. It's a little bit different.
They speak a foreign language.
That's exactly right. So, talking about that, so that's the second thing. I want to talk about something called a beneficiary. And everybody should be familiar with this term. If you have an IRA, if you have life insurance, if you have any sort of contract property, you get to name these beneficiaries. But here's the thing that I realize most people don't know, is that if you set up all this trust planning and you do all this and you keep your beneficiaries just the same, you did nothing.
Okay.
You wasted your time. In the same way with the titling of all your assets. I always think of a will and a trust document kind of like a vacuum cleaner. They just pick things up after all the big furniture's moved. You got to move that big furniture, and you got to name who you want to intend to name, or your estate or your trust. And that's something to make sure you review with your attorney on how does this beneficiary need to be named to be able to go into this trust if that's what I set up. There's something else that is important with beneficiaries, and it's a term called per stirpes. Really funny little term.
We're in Latin.
Yeah. But it's a very important term, because a lot of times what I'll see is people name one beneficiary on their document after their spouse, like a kid or 3 kids in a row. But what if something happens to that one kid? Have you ever thought about that? Would it go back to the other 2 children? Is that what you want to have happen? Did it need to go down to the grandchild? How does that need to be set up, right? And there's a term called share and share alike, where it makes sure and goes to, each kid. It can be shared. Or if you want it to stay down the bloodline, if you want it to continue down the bloodline, that term
of that child.
Okay. It's called per stirpes. So, knowing those terms and knowing to put those on your beneficiary forms are really, really important. And you'll also see them written in your legal lingo. They're going to be written into trusts and things like that, because you may not know who all your grandchildren are going to be. Isn't that kind of exciting? Or your great-grandchildren are going to be. So if you're going to meet them one day, I'm sure you're going to fall in love with them, just like you have your other grandchildren. And you want to make sure that they're taken care of. Making sure that that's set up appropriately is extremely, extremely important. So make sure, when you're looking at your blended estate plan, you're looking at those 4 things, first of all. If you have any hiccups, and I know this show should entice you to ask some questions. Yeah,
this is a lot of really great information today.
It is good information. It's important information. So email us, lifeplanning@kennedy-financial.com. The best question today gets 3 pairs of pants dry cleaned or starched at Comet Cleaners. And here is our trivia. How many blended families form every day? I have 3 choices here: 110, 870, or 1,300. The winner's going to get a box of warm, gooey donuts, so make sure that you email us, lifeplanning@kennedy-financial.com. We truly appreciate you listening in on our show today. Hope it's helpful. And again, let's keep our world in our prayers as we go through these times. My name is Angela Kennedy Robinson with Kennedy Financial Services here in Eastland, Texas. And have a great week, everyone. God bless.
Thank you so very much, folks. A lot of information today, but again, just contact them. They're ready, willing, and able. We don't even know the questions to ask. That's what continuously I learn each time on the program, is you don't even know what question to ask. Per stirpes? Oh, sure. Yeah, I woke up this morning thinking, I need to make sure I've dealt with per stirpes today. Angela, thank you, and the entire company at Kennedy Financial Services really do appreciate it. Folks, tune in again next time.
Thank you for joining us for Life Planning 101, brought to you by Kennedy Financial Services of Eastland. Tune in every Monday morning at 8:30 on KATX, and again on Saturday morning at 9 o'clock on KATX and KWBY for more Life Planning 101.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through VSR Financial Services Incorporated, a registered investment advisor and member of FINRA SIPC. Kennedy Financial Services is not owned or controlled by VSR Financial Services Incorporated.